Hello everyone, welcome to Guide Bytes Digital Transformation Series. I'm Prasanna Vaidya, I'm CEO of Guide and your host for today. We are kicking off this series with a very interesting topic, maximizing ROI through human-centered, data-driven digital transformation. So it's not just about technology, it's about creating transformation that connects people, data and results. And to help us break it down all, we have an amazing guest today, Samir Gupta. Samir is a digital transformation leader. He is currently heading digital and transformation PMO at Hero FinCorp. With over 15 years of experience, he is known for aligning digital strategies with business goals in a practical and impactful way. Welcome, Samir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Prasanna. It is lovely to be here on this topic, especially because this is very close to my heart, and I love drive this across, whether it is professional or personal. But digitalization and digital transformation has been somewhere the core to me.
Yeah, wonderful. Samir, let's dive right in. Let's get started with the basics, right? So, what is your take on what do you mean by human-centered digital transformation?
Yeah. So, human centered in as the word suggests. So, everything you do has to be centered across people, keeping people in the mind. So as long as the people are at the core, and when I say people, you need not necessarily uh, related to as a consumer. These are people which are across the supply chain or the value chain, let me call that. So this value chain for any industry, for any product, or for especially if we are talking about NBFC or a BFSI series, so you have a series of humans who are working in this entire value chain to get that thing delivered. So whatever are you doing, whatever technology that you are bringing in, whatever interventions you are making, they have to be centered around them. At the end of the day, your users shall come back to you and say, yes, it has eased my life. If the answer to the entire intervention is like, boss, what have you done? It is, you have created a more mess for me. Now I have to do like double entries. I have to do physical also and digital also. So that is very, very practical examples that you will face when you go through the digital interventions. But yes, and that's where I am focusing particularly on the human centered piece, because at the end of the day, the stakeholder, the user, and all the interventions that we are making has to talk to him.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, and these days after COVID, we have app and system for everything. So that becomes like a good way to bring about that. Okay, are these systems really helping the end users or the employees or the contractors or the vendors and so on? That's a really good way to put it, Samir. Coming to this balance, right? So on one side there is this transformation, and on other side there is data. But how do you balance these things? So how do you make sure that whatever processes, systems, data you're putting in, they are actually making sure that life is easier for the users or the consumers or anyone?
So, I mean, you have to create a balance. So the balance here is of the empathy and the evidence. So when you enter into any kind of these transformational projects, so very first thing that you will feel or face is a resistance, and that is
Yeah.
very natural, because whenever you disturb something which is a way of life for anyone, and you ask him to kind of hey, I am gonna shake you, and you will be out of your comfort zone for the next at least couple of months, because a new system is coming up, a UAT will be done, then system testing will be done, and your life will be like what new you have brought to me. So that empathy and evidence, because even these guys are nowhere kind of resisting to this thing, but they are not having enough evidence or the proof of the pudding. So as a digital transformational leader, your role here is to kind of appreciate that apprehension which they are having, talk to them, listen to it, and address it. There is no point in just pushing it from top to down,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the people on the ground who will be using these systems, who will be using these technologies, have to have that kind of a confidence into it, have to have that kind of a championship on those tools, and that's where the scale and the actual efficiency will translate into. And that has been my balance also, because we do it in small bits and pieces. You bring in, and it's a iteration, you keep on bringing in iterative models into picture and show them small proof. And as you keep winning along the journey, that brings a lot of people with you. And as I mentioned in my previous thing, it has to, at the end of the day, ease his life. And there is no point, I mean, if I'm easing your life out, I'm giving you evidence, I'm there to support you, I'm providing all the empathy, evidence and data. I mean, sooner or later you will join the bandwagon.
Yeah, makes sense. So I like the point where you mentioned that at the end of the day, if users, either internal or external, if they're able to use what we are deploying, then only the actual efficiencies and scale will come in. My next question is around that topic in a way. So at the end of the day, goals of the business is to drive revenues, profits, customer satisfaction, productivity, and so on. So how you make sure that the processes, DX process, digital transformation process that are putting in place, they are actually driving these business goals.
Yeah, so the very pointed answer to this will be, whatever you are doing, ask
Mhm.
yourself a very basic question: why are you doing this? And this is that is being discussed along whenever I am doing any kind of an intervention, any project that comes even from the top down, anything that even we think of, bringing on the table. The very first question that I ask myself is, why are we doing this? At the end of the day, as you rightly mentioned, if we are doing it in a professional or a commercial setup, you can't only do it for UI UX,
Yeah,
right? So UI UX is only the front end, but that UI UX, giving a better UI UX also has to have some kind of a bottom line or a top line effect,
yeah,
right? And those kind of things, if I just use the jargon, so ROI, as we use in the corporate world, so your return on investment, your rate of return, whatever you want to call that, so that has to be taken into consideration. Am I gonna reduce the cost post this? Am I gonna increase the scale of my business? Is my efficiency gonna go better after this, and that will indirectly lead to a reduced OPEX? Or I am gonna create more value for the end user? So what is
yeah,
in it? So all these will, at the end of the day, when you will look at the broader picture and you will tie these pieces, they will talk to one single element, that is your return on investment. And I think so that is the way that we shall start looking at the technology interventions, because there is no point in just bringing in a technology, because we just don't want to kind of join the tribe and be in that buzz. Like, there are a lot of elements today that you hear: artificial intelligence. So even if you, I mean, we were talking somewhere in today, each and everything that you pick up in the market, it is will have one tagline: AI enabled,
AI
right?
powered.
AI powered, AI enabled. But no one actually understand, because artificial intelligence is nothing new. Artificial intelligence has been here from last, I think so, 15-20 years. Gen AI, conversational AI, yes, those are the new aspects that the AI has brought on the table. But are you contextualizing them to your setup? Or are you simply like, someone is coming, pitching you a Gen AI based solution, a LLM based heavy, hardcore infra heavy solution, and you are good to go with that? Answer is no. You
Yeah,
shall look at why you are doing it, and it has to be very pointed goal, what you want to achieve. And the journey towards that, for any kind of a technology intervention, has to be iterative. So for that and ROI, please set your smaller milestones and prove it as you go along, because that will get you buy-in from your senior stakeholders also. At the
yeah,
end of the day, if they will also see that we are moving in the right direction, that gives you a lot of impetus internally. Otherwise, lot of projects kind of die their own death during the implementation stage itself. So I mean, so that is pretty much how we look at the data and use it for keeping it human centered, but at the same time being ROI driven.
Yeah, makes sense. Samir, you also mentioned something about users won't be joining the bandwagon just like that because you rolled out a new system, they are not going to use it. And I believe users are a very important part of all of this, but there are a lot of other stakeholders involved, like there are change management teams, training teams, and internal IT teams, and so on. So, how do you get all those teams also to join that bandwagon? Because all of them are needed for a successful transformation in a way.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one, and that hits you back if you don't take it right. Yeah, and this happens, and this is a very much practical world problem that any of the, I mean, leave aside digital transformation, any of a project manager has to have this right. You know, and in our setups in the NBFC space, in the BFSI space, as you rightly mentioned, there are n number of departments, and getting any intervention done, you have to have compliance sign off, you have to have a fraud sign off, you have to have a business sign off, IT kind of alignment, and operational aspects and everything. So the only answer is again going back to the same thing. If you are human centered, then you understand, because each department
Mhm.
is driving some end goal. You
Yeah.
know, compliance is worried about, by bringing this in, am I kind of diluting my checks? Am I gonna be a shady player in the eyes of the regulator, or I am kind of enhancing my reputation out in the market? I am being proactive in the eyes of the regulator. My reporting will not be hampered. Similarly, an operational executive will be more concerned with, will it kind of bring in more open reconciliation gaps? Can it have any kind of a financial impact? As a project leader, you have to have that kind of visibility across the departments and understand why they are kind of resisting it.
Mhm.
They are not, and please understand me, they are not resisting it in any personal capacity. They
Yeah.
are only resisting it because they feel that their particular department will get a hit,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's your role. For example, a simple example, IT is heavily packed these days with number of projects,
Yeah.
right? You go and ask him like, boss, I have a new technology, I want to do a POC. Do you think that he will be excited?
No.
Answer is no. He say, okay, you can do a POC plus B, but please don't bother me. You do whatever you want to do. When your POC will be done, once you are successful, then come back to me and get it prioritized and then get it kind of scheduled. I will then tell you when I can pick it up,
Yeah. I
because they
mean,
also have their challenges.
everyone sort of 2 quarters are packed.
Exactly. Bare minimum. Bare
Yeah.
minimum. Yeah. So in this setup, when you are kind of front ending this kind of a transformation, it is between you and the vendor. It is between you and the service provider to get it into the right design before you
Mhm.
kind of internalize it with the stakeholders. I think so you have to play a major role. Is it in
Yeah.
the right shape as of now to get it internalized? Till the time it is not, please, let's work between those two people itself, wherein vendor can get it down to a shape wherein we can easily consume it, and this consumption will be always contextual to your setup. A
Yeah.
traditional uh, diversified NBFC will have a different challenge. A new age, fast growing NBFC will have a different challenge. You
Yeah.
have to talk that language. You have to get that solution. Solution will remain the same. You are not going to change the solution for me, but we have to package it differently. And
Yeah.
that understanding has to come from the role of a digital transformation leader. You understand that as a solo intervention or the solo phase who will be talking, because these 7 or 8 departments will come very later into the picture. You are the single face who is talking on the behalf of all of them, and
Yeah.
if you don't understand all these nitty gritties, or if you are not giving enough thought on these nitty gritties, then please, I mean, it is very much required to get a cross functional buy-in, because cross functions will very easily come with you as long as you are not disturbing their apple cart. you are making things fit into their scheme of things, and
Yeah,
you are giving them a confidence of no accidents are gonna happen, or either way it is even gonna increase the efficiency. If you can talk on these terms, if you can, and again, no need to kind of do an enterprise rollout. You can always do a small interventions and get the people on board.
yeah, yeah, makes sense. And as they say, right, don't change the thing that's working. So that's
Exactly.
that.
No, none of the business leader will allow you to do that,
Yeah, yeah,
because at the end of the day, I mean, everything is good, whatever you want to do with the digital transformation and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, boss, I need my numbers.
yeah, yeah.
And to get that rolling, I think so, you have to maintain that apple cart and just silently and subtly keep on introducing the new layers.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, yeah. That actually brings us to our last topic for the day, in a way. So, as you mentioned briefly about the changing regulatory landscape and whether bringing something in is going to look bad in the regulator's eye and so on. So this question is little bit regarding that. So it's sort of a heavily regulated. It's becoming heavily regulated these days. So how do you keep these projects, transformation projects, flexible, because the business needs evolve, the regulatory needs evolve, and so on?
See, I think so, we have touched upon it, but let me deep dive into it. The idea here will always be to, uh, one, to keep it iterative.
Mhm.
Two, to keep it flexible. When I say flexible, so in this term, it means, don't hard code. People
Yeah,
tend to kind of, design a blueprint, and then they think this is gonna work, and they go all out with a pure end-to-end compartmentalized implementation.
yeah, yeah,
The moment you do that, the moment you do a hard coding, and the moment you kind of, seal those compartments, you're gonna face the brunt, because whatever may you think of the UATs, SITs, testing, think through, design thinking, at the end of the day, when you will go to market, you will have something or the new,
yeah,
either in terms of the user, either in terms of the perceived parameters that we thought of at the time of the designing. And for, I mean, God forbid, if you haven't done anything, there is a macro environment, there is a regulator out there, right? A very very recent and a very simple example can be, I mean, the changes in the digital KYC.
yeah, yeah,
People have designed their journeys end to end. The regulator one fine day came and said, there's a different method that I want to you to adopt for a digital KYC,
yeah,
and I only authenticate to only those players. So now you have to abide it. There is no point in this. The moment if the same entire piece is hard coded, you are gone for a toss.
yeah, and I mean, for a regulator, it's always a small incremental change. But if for a company or for NBFC or any BFSI player for that matter, it's like life-changing event in a way, because
Absolutely.
every entire process changes for the company.
See, it's not only about implementing the technology. You have to bring in the right set of people also who will run this show. You Sometime it has to be a complete setup of a new, for example, video KYC. You can't just bring in a KYC suit who is capable of doing a video interaction. You have to put in people behind that also. There will be a maker, there will be a checker, there will be an auditor, and there will be a huge call center kind of a setup that will be running these video KYCs day in and day out. So
Yeah,
very rightly said. And especially in today's environment, while we keep on talking about agility is nothing. It is this only.
yeah,
So the moment a regulation has came up, were your systems flexible enough? Were your journeys kind of were your services, your microservices, your kind of the connections that you have used while building that end-to-end chain design, at that point in time you have to be very future ready.
yeah,
people
yeah,
people kind of take start taking a solace into the piece, like, uh, design approved, requirement approved, now I just have to roll it out. Boss, no, your role as a professional here is not to roll it out. You have to be always on your toes and keep on thinking what can come up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe, you can look up to different industries, and that gives you a lot of learning also. It is not always, that learning will come from your own industry itself.
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah. That's actually a very valid point. You have to be on your toes. So, Samir, before we wrap up for today, what's one piece of key advice you want our listeners to take away with when they hear this podcast?
I mean, to those who are driving digital transformation from the front, uh, please get into the spirit of the same. And it's not only about implementing the technology or the project or the intervention. Please start working and going one step ahead, wherein you can start influencing the mindsets also.
Wow.
By mindsets, I mean a kind of a digital adoption for the technology that has been implemented, and building up the use cases for the technologies that have not got a buy-in right now. So you will have to have always, upline and downline, where you will need to keep on having those kind of a conversations that keep on bringing the digital mindset in the organization. It's your role to keep that up and running and not let it down, because they are already under a lot of tremendous pressures. Someone is running business numbers, someone is running collection numbers, someone is, fighting his daily targets, logins, and a lot of other stuff. They are not worried about whatever kind of a digital transformation you want to do, but it is your role to observe it, get their pain points identified, and see wherever you can solutionize it. And mind me, these solutions doesn't only exist for your front line or the down the line. Even the senior leaders out there are also facing a lot of problems. They are also, going through a lot of things in their management and their senior management cycle. Technology intervention can bring a lot of benefits for them. And I mean, this is particularly to the people who are in the digital transformation space, and otherwise to the cross functional guys. If you are listening out there, I urge you to please help these guys build a digital culture inside the organization. It's high time, the L&D teams, the learning and development teams start thinking on these lines. While we talk about fail fast, fail forward, but are we having those kind of cultures in the organization? Are you allowing those people? Are you celebrating those people? So this is obviously, I mean, it's not only, L&D alone can do, or a business alone can do. And that's where I'm saying a cohesive culture, wherein at least we focus on it as a structured thing. Are we kind of doing a digital assessments in the organizations? Do you know, as a digital framework, where what is the kind of the digital maturity of your organization, or of, for that matter, of your unit? What kind of talent you are acquiring? Are you acquiring a talent who has that bent of mind, or a kind of a person who is still kind of comfortable with getting a physical file processed? So the idea here is, the digital transformation in silo can't do anything. It is meant to break the silos.
Yeah.
And once you will start taking the enterprise view on this entire piece, you will see that digital transformation is actually at each and every node. The point you are assessing a candidate, from the point you are onboarding him, from the point you are inducting him, till as he is out on a product training, uh, are you kind of, and once you are intervening, doing these kind of interventions, do you really celebrate the champions,
Yeah.
early champions? Do you make them role model? So,
Yeah.
I mean, these are very, very small pieces. I mean, but if you look around, these basics are not being done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And for very valid reasons. I mean, as we talked about, everyone is busy driving their own particular goal, but there has to be a one single goal at a very top layer, which has to work on building this culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So, just to summarize, digital culture, digital adoption, and making sure those interventions are small, iterative, and so on. That was wonderful, Samir. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your approach is truly in a way different and inspiring. I hope you liked our conversation as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm delighted to have a chat, this conversation, and always love to take it to the wider audience. And I mean, nothing better can be than this platform to take these learnings out in the market. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much, Samir. Thank you once again. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your colleagues. We'll be back soon with more episodes on digital transformation as a series. So stay tuned and keep learning.